That is a pretty normal start.
I can do really realistic death screams and all sorts.
Prove it.
If you'll just if you'll... Hold on. Opening the windows again, because I can't keep them closed.
Welcome.
So I probably just woke up my sister, who is for some reason asleep at 2 p.m. on a school day.
Is it school still going on?
I think they cancelled it back in 2020.
Welcome to the Barrel Vision podcast with just me
I shouldn't
and
have
Harry.
done that because now my throat hurts.
Just me and Harry this week. Tom was here, but he didn't.
Yeah, and I've
he
been more talking.
Didn't anymore.
Sure.
So for the first time in a while, it's just us.
Yeah, he wants to go and skull fuck his
Yeah.
his cat.
He doesn't have
Sorry,
a cat.
I shouldn't have started off so vulgar. Although this probably will get vulgar because we're actually going to be mostly talking about things that, not things that we don't like, but that's not the topic. But we will talk about things we don't like.
Yeah.
I just want to thank everyone for that overwhelming support on the 100 subscriber special.
Yeah.
I care. Also, the Burt video. Once again, this is what I expected. Not only is it a second generation weapon, which we've established, those ones don't get much views. It's also the Burt.
Oh, that's not very nice. Thing is, it was doing
But you
fine.
agree, don't you?
Yeah, I do. But
It's like the least interesting weapon.
I agree with you, but I don't agree with the sentiment.
It's no more or less interesting than the GK2 or the Zukov, or even the Warthog. But it's such a simpleton.
It really just comes down to the overclocks. Execution wise, it's about average, but it's just a burst pistol, which is I guess slightly more interesting than like the Sabata. But then it really is Sabata's overclocks with the explosive reload and the full auto tranquilizer rounds do kind of make it at least more interesting than the burst.
I forgot Sabata.
Yeah.
I wonder how that video's going to do.
Well, about the middle, right? So far, patterns. But we'll find out soon. No, we're not.
No, we won't. What do you mean we'll find out soon?
Well, I
found out.
but then I forgot that we start with primaries. Point is,
every time we get through a set, it sort of isn't re-established, but for the moment, my hypothesis is correct until proven otherwise. That the Gen 2 weapons receive the least attention, and that Gen 3 weapons receive the most. And that the original bunch receive a middle-of-the-road attention.
If any of you guys want to be devilish, go and use spam to make that not the case. It definitely won't benefit us. So
if you want to be a devilish little devil,
yeah.
If you want to be a real rebel and watch the video.
Yeah. But to the subject at hand, we are talking about the game's balance. Which is the second part to the previous part. There was last week's podcast of like the dwarves balancing between them and their guns too,
but I won't sing as much at the forefront because I can't be bothered. And there's a lot of things here. I mainly want it will be about balance in one way or another, but that we talk about something. I kind of want to almost point out the things that are too easy or too hard in a way. That's what I'd like to do. Even though this will be, you'll see the title. It's how difficult is DRG, and it's only because I didn't want to just use the word balanced again. It was either going to be, what it is now, or it was going to be just last week part 2. I didn't want it to be a different title that also has balancing in it. So here we are. So yeah, technically the topic is difficulty balance. and that can encompass, as I unveiled to Tyler yesterday, much more than he might have anticipated. Missions, mutators, enemies, deeper dives, double warnings, sure. Events. We established that events includes any random encounter that isn't guaranteed, which is machine events, bosses, and seasonal events.
And by bosses, we mainly just mean
as there
Betsy and Corlock.
Bosses are there as well, but that can include those bosses as well as mission-based bosses and types of swarms. So, where do you want to start?
Well, honestly,
I know what you want to talk about.
Yeah, but I the mission bosses has kind of caught me off guard. As in, like, so what? And I'm sure you don't inherently know what you meant by it, but what do you think the Omorans, the Caretaker, and I guess Dreadnoughts are at the same difficulty or balanced in any way?
Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Yeah.
Well, you take it one step at a time. I guess the first step would be elimination on its own, if elimination is balanced, as a mission.
Yeah, I suppose.
And it wasn't. It wasn't because it used to be. I mean, I don't know if. I'm not sure if fun factor is the right word, but elimination missions used to be fairly uninteresting. They start off as sort of. They sort of had the problem that I think escort duties in sort of at first they seem like this grander, more dangerous venture until you realise you know exactly what you're getting in for every time. That's what eliminations used to be, but they also used to be quite easy. Not only because you knew normal dreadnoughts, they also just used to be easier. If you had an engineer with proximity mines, that's it. That's all you need. You can just cheese it. It was so easy. It became trivial because we could handle one or two without doing that. But by the end, you could just call them any 16 proximity mines, and the dreadnought just goes down within a blink of an eye. And I'd say that after they overhauled them in update 30, I want to say, they became one of the harder ones, I think, or one of the more straightforwardly difficult ones. I
wouldn't. Well, obviously, like, everything we're going to say that they're difficult will immediately become not the case if hazard is lowered, right? Like, if you lower the hazard, nothing is hard. It's just how it is. But, like, so take everything we say at, like, has 4 or has 5 kind of thing, like, which ones are just kind of harder. But I think no matter what the hazard difficulty you're kind of playing on, eliminations became a lot more engaging. I don't know about you, but compared to every other game mode, eliminations are now one of the ones that I'm like, oh, we're doing an elimination, right? Like, it won't be like until halfway through a Morkite mission do I realise we're in a Morkite mission, because it doesn't really matter. Like, they're just kind of caged. But eliminations, like, out the gate, feel different because of, like, the way that you're kind of slammed in the centre of, like, 3 big caves, and you have to kind of go between them, and then the actual objective themselves is very engaging to do at the time.
Well, what I've just realised about elimination missions is that they probably have the most rigid difficulty, the most sort of tangible difficulty as well. The one you can most knowingly not only work around but also strive to overcome. Because I haven't felt that elimination since I overhauled them have gotten any less difficult. I mean, I still get through them 90% of the time, but they haven't actually gotten much easier. They seem to have this very rigid level of difficulty that sort of comes from, even though they used to be much more predictable, they're still probably one of the most predictable missions because, unlike in, it's mainly escort duty, where you don't know exactly what type of swarms you're going to get. You don't know what the RNG has decided is going to be your most common enemy type. You might get detonators, you might not. You might get shit tons of web spitters and spitters. And it still relies on swarms to be the main threat, to be honest. Then Industrial Sabotage, but at the same time, it's not predictable where the hacking pod is going to land. Technically, elimination missions are still probably the most predictable missions, but at the same time, I haven't felt like I feel like the difficulty has remained extremely. Well, it's remained. It's like static. I don't think they're getting any more difficult or easier for me. It's weird.
Well, it is a,
and that's like
it's a real like balancing act of like, because all three dreadnoughts are difficult in their own right, like, so you can't really like you can't really prepare for all of them exactly. Generally, just pick a single target damage and you should be all right for the mission. But depending on the enemy, depends how well that's going to work. Like, you know, twins, they just kind of bombard you with overwhelming amounts of attacks. Like, any given moment, you are being hunted down by something, right? Like, he's either digging up below you, setting you on fire, doing his, like, ground slashes, or you're being shot at by the arbalist with, like lobbed grenades or direct shotgun. Like,
can I do the thing?
I don't know what thing you're going to do.
The arbalist is dead. Yeah!
I think it's more yeah!
Yeah! Yeah, but I don't want to just screech at the top of my lungs all the time. A lie.
That is a lie you do all the time. But yeah, I mean, and then the Hive Guard is a lot more, probably not more tanky. I think that she really, I mean, summons the Sentinels, so more of a enemy clearing one. But even then, not really that much. Like, you're not gonna go an AOE against the Hive Guard. There's no real point. You still might as well go single target, because the Sentinels are basically just Praetorians. But yeah,
the Sentinels are basically just unarmored Praetorians, because I don't know if they're technically armored or not, but I know that you can damage them from anywhere, and I've never broken their armor, so
yeah.
I assume they're just like unarmored, basically just unarmored Praetorians.
But they should still aim for their ass. But
yeah, definitely. They got weird asses.
Yeah.
The Sentinels are just so weird. Especially because they have no bestiary entry either. What's that all about? What's that all about then, eh? Sentinels. They're the most elusive creatures.
Yeah. The point is, there is a vast variety of things you kind of gotta do to fight against them. And it's different for each one, and it's just more fun than the other bosses. And
well, I mean, I'm going to like sort of launch into a take straight away. I think eliminations are probably the most balanced mission type, because and it is because they're the most predictable, I guess. There's still certain hazards you can run into. I've noticed that they have massive ambushes for some reason, which is awesome. Because even when you have a full team, I've never seen ambush hordes quite like the ones I've seen on Elimination.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Oh,
yesterday?
Yeah. I mean, we got it recording, so yeah.
You can see that.
Well, I think it might be because it pent it all up. From like us fighting the
they actually do though, but they actually do missions to actually pent up ambushes or in some way while you're doing certain things like bosses or certain events.
Yeah, so it's just, I don't know, it is just a very nice game mode that I'm so glad they went back and like touched up, because it was pretty bog standard originally. It was nothing special, other than Dreadnought was the only real boss fight back then, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, and of course, Dreadnoughts can spawn in normal missions sometimes. For some reason, it seems like there's a high chance of this happening on point extractions and refineries. I don't know if you've noticed this. But almost everyone's first dreadnought swarm, quotes, is on a point extraction. Ours was, I remember that very vividly. I just remember that it was on dense biozone.
The only one I remember having recently was on a point, not a point extraction, the oil refinery. I know we had it
Yeah.
on oil refinery.
Something about those two missions seems more likely for some reason. And, yeah, even those have gotten harder. Well, obviously they've gotten harder. Because they used to just be the normal dreadnoughts, which was still fairly easy to take care of. I mean, to be honest, when it comes to the standard dreadnought, they did sort of put it on steroids a little bit. The main thing that made it harder was actually just giving it invincibility frames when it recharges its shield.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really made it technically harder.
I think they made him quicker though, because my main issue.
They jacked it up. They jacked up like all its stats.
Yeah.
But that was the main addition. Really, that's the only real addition.
Other than the other ones, obviously. But yeah.
Yeah. And then that made that encounter harder as well. And I mean, I value those encounters, but I've actually gotten through very few of them. I mean, I honestly don't think I've even had like half a dozen not so introduced, and I think I failed about half of them because they're just
dreadnoughts are very hard to kill if you are not prepared for them. Like,
yeah, and it's also very different terrain. Like, it's sort of making me realise how much terrain sort of plays into the way you play. Like, the terrain of other mission types is not built for dreadnoughts, and I think that's why they might actually be more common on point extractions and refineries. I mean, it makes more sense to me on point extraction because of the turrets and the sort of the big flat areas. But maybe refineries, not only they're very similar mission types, but also you have the pipes. So I don't know, maybe something about these missions is just more catered to those encounters somehow. I guess. But I mean, that leads into just not swarms in general, but more like the different types of swarms and how the dreadnought one difficult, but also the rarest, and by far not my least favourite as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, its difficulty is balanced by its rareness. Like, you're not off. You don't expect to get jumped by a dreadnought in a mission.
Well, I don't know if that makes much sense to me, really. Just because it's rare means it's more likely for you to fail the mission. Seems a bit odd.
Well, yeah, but I don't know. It kind of is. Well, it's not like Deep Rock's against making you lose for things out of your control, right? Sometimes it does just throw overwhelming shit at you, and you just have to kind of deal with it. But the game, tempers that by making it rare for it to throw a dreadnought at you. And I think I'd much rather that than it being common or it being removed.
Oh god! I mean, no. It's definitely one of the most well placed things in the game.
Yeah.
Is the dreadnought? They work as they should, and they should definitely not be removed. Maybe what should be removed are Mactera swarms. I mean, I don't really believe that, but they're definitely my least preferred. I mean, sometimes, actually, you know what? I don't hate Mactera swarms. I hate Macteras more when they're accompanied by other things. For some reason.
I just kind of hate Macteras. They're just so deadly. Like, so much more than most other things. They're pretty easy to
not like. Yeah, they're pretty difficult to like and pretty easy to not like. But they prove. Well, that's the thing. Are they the hardest swarm type though? Probably.
Well, once again, it really you can't. Nothing we say here has a flat thing because it depends on your build. Because once again, if you get like a random dreadnought and you're like AOE build, you never stood a chance, right? Or like I don't know. But it's the same for like you get a swarm. AOE build, God, yeah, or like AOE like Thunderhead, they never stood a chance, right? But yeah, Scout M1000, you never stood a chance. It just kind of varies too much. But I think what can be comfortably said is that grunt swarms are the best swarms.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not going to deny that. It doesn't mean they're the easiest, though.
Well, I think they using
Probably are, though.
my
Yeah, probably
logic
are.
just now, but I think they are because you then right because it is just grunts, right? So you don't need to dodge Macteras, you don't need to worry about any other special bollocks. Literally, if you can just keep a hold of the bog standard grunts and you just hold them off, job done, right? And you can do that with basically all builds. They can deal with grunts well enough, like. So I think really, if only because like no matter what you're running, you can be prepared for just a stupid amount of grunts, unless you're I don't know Scout. But point is, yeah, I think they probably
I love
are.
Scout. Wait, I love Grunt Horde's Scout when I'm using firebolts.
Sure, but if you're using anything else,
when I'm a Scout and my opponent is Grunt Horde.
I mean, is Grunt Horde as a Scout probably worse than Swarmer? Because at least the Swarmers you can pickaxe them.
Yeah.
Because I really don't think they spawn that much like different amounts of them. Because swarms don't actually spawn as much swarmers as I feel like they should.
Honestly, the numbers can be slightly underwhelming, but at the same time, I don't know. Something about swarmers, I reckon it could very easily tip towards too much if there was any more of them. I feel like they're just on the razor edge of being like, I'm going to turn my fan on. No, I'm not. Don't turn the fan on. But it's weird because you have like you have smaller swarms, and I don't know what that was, and then you have warnings that do the same thing. There is no such Praetorians and grunts have no such treatment. Do they? What's that about, eh? What's that about? Why do we have to? Why does Macbeth Plague have to exist?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't. I have no problem with them stealing things, especially names. There's a version of Firefight from the Halo games where it's Firefight called Grunt Apocalypse, and it's exactly what you think it is. It's just grunts, as in, and they occupy a very similar role.
Well, the thing is, though,
in
Harry,
these two games,
is that
just the small fodder enemies. It's just waves of them.
the thing is, though, Harry, that is
kill.
what is already a thing. Really, that's just normal ambushes. It's just grunts.
Yeah, I know.
So it would just increase the normal
more
amount of
than
ambushes.
I want more of them.
I
How am I
think
meant to get to 1 million grunt kills before the end of the year? I'm not. I'm not even at 500,000.
how are you supposed
Need more
to do
grunts.
that?
You're not.
All right, fair
I
enough.
reckon I'll get to. I honestly, because I kill a lot of grunts, but I would need to kill 13,000 more to get to 500,000 by the end of the year. 13,000 sounds like a lot. That's a lot of grunts. But I've killed 486,000. Let's talk about bestiary balance, eh? How many kills you've got for each thing? It's just we'll look at the Macteras. Oh, I've killed 8,000 Trijaws. Is that it? 8,000 Trijaws and about 2,000 Brundles.
Well, 2,000.
Which one do you think's worse?
Impressive.
Which one do you think's worse, eh? Because I think Trijaws are probably worse, and that yet I've killed so many more. There's so many more Trijaws to kill than Brundles. Because they know that the Brundles are kind of boring.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of balancing, Brundles are redundant. They like
Yeah.
well, it's just
Yeah.
they're just tanky as swarms, which is like
But the problem is they're not that tanky. I mean,
yeah.
they are, but for some reason, they don't feel. Even though I think they technically have quite a bit more health than guards, they don't feel as pervasive. Like
Yeah.
guards, I think we said. I think it's actually on recording. I think it was in stream. We talked about guards. That they're sort of just these little fuckers that just always left behind. Like after you're done, clearing a horde of grunts, even if on low health, and I do sort of like the design of a lot of the just enemy groups. It's something that just throws a wrench in the works, which is kind of funny and not inherently unbalanced. It's probably how things should be. Like, I think that's what the Trijaws are, because frankly, goo bombers and grabbers aren't massive, they're not particularly lethal, and the spawns are just spawns. But the Trijaws are a problem.
Well, the Trijaws are the slashers of Bacteria. The swarms are the they're guards. But like the Brundles they're not like the guards. They're in the well, I guess they kind of are, because guards really are just like grunts but with armor that just survive.
Yeah.
They don't actually like attack any better or different. So I guess there is something
elite guards do though, because elite guards are chads.
Yeah.
Who actually push you around,
which is what we want the
kind of
Brundles to do. On the record,
we
think they should swoop down and hit you and throw you around.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they should do. That's what I thought when they first revealed those guys, the new Macteras. They thought, oh, it's a beefy one. What's it going to do? I reckon it's going to be a melee one. It's, oh yeah. I think
no, it's just
a spawn.
Yeah,
it's just a spawn with armor, and you're boring. But I also like you for some reason.
Well, they're rare, It's always nice to see them.
I don't think I would dislike them if they were common. I don't know why they're weak to corrosion. I don't know why Mactera are, apparently. That's nice.
Mactera
just
goes to everything.
Sludge pump. The best.
Alright,
Mactera are weak to everything, though. They're weak to fire, and explosions, and pickaxes. Why are they weak to melee? Why are they weak? What?
Point is, I'm not sure what the point is. Kind of rambled off, but should we get to a different game?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, I don't really think we've really tied up anything.
No.
We talked about.
Who said we need to tie things up? Harry.
I just instinctually turned off my controller.
Why?
But I don't know. I also don't like the fact that I just admitted that I'm using a controller. That's kind of whack. No. I want to go back to the boss type missions.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to stick to my take on Illumination. But what about the other two? What about the other? Industrial Sabotage is such a weird bundle of joy and pain. And they sort of know it, I think. Its position in the game, in terms of how you're encouraged to do it, or
is that you aren't really
lack thereof of encouragement. It's nature, in that it probably is. It's because it's harder than most other missions. It's harder than all other missions on average. It kind of just is.
Yeah.
But it is one I've been getting better at. Kind of. I've mainly been getting better at dealing with the caretaker, sort of realizing that it's designed in a way you get a lot of nitro on these missions, and given that they never show up in deep dives, particularly never as a first or second stage, in particular, to me they are designed in a way where you kind of just ammo dump the caretaker, especially considering the fact that they resist every status effect.
Yeah.
Or the caretaker resists everything. Just throw everything at it. Just take as many resupplies as you can. And I do. and it works. But to me, the thing that brings those missions down for me is the two data deposits that you have to hack. Count them. 2 deposits. Obviously, that's the whole point of this. That's what we've been building up to. But yeah, in my opinion, that's sort of what brings Industrial Sabotages down. But at the same time, it's the unpredictable part of them. You're going to run into turrets. You're going to do relatively. It can use different attacks, but you know all of its attacks because there's not actually that many. And then it's really just those data deposits that sort of throw a wrench in the works, because it's mainly because you can't predict where it's going to be. It's usually the positioning that really, that whole activity is kind of scuffed.
Well, first of all, I think we should finish up the boss thing before we get into that. But second of all, I think the issue with that game mode, while maybe data deposit, may also be the fact that the caretaker, you don't really feel your damage that you're doing to it at all. Ever, it doesn't. It's not very visually or like feelingly rewarding.
Well, that's sort of been a thing that's been brought up just about the robots.
Well, and that as well. It's a robot relying mission, but I really do think it's. Why did they add another stationary boss fight game mode? What made them think that would be what people wanted?
Well, what I'll say about that is that's why they didn't do it. Because it's, I don't know how known it is. They were originally prototyped the update. What was it? Roughnecks at Work, which was when Escort Duty and On-Site Refining were introduced. They were originally prototyping 3 missions. One of them, the one that wasn't included in that update, is what would go on to become Industrial Sabotage. And I reckon they didn't include it because of that fact. But it sort of just built up over time where they had enough ideas and enough concept to allocate to it, where they could sort of excuse adding another stationary boss fight. I do think they knew, in a way.
Yeah, but that doesn't.
That's why it wasn't. That why it didn't come out alongside Escort Duty originally, because it was too similar. Just over time, they had enough ideas and enough cool. So specifically, the context was so radically different. That's the only thing that really sets them apart. Wasn't the only thing that sets them apart, but it's the thing that sets them apart the most.
They could have done something different. I don't know, but I'm just trying to, because I mean, as it was, Escort Duty was pretty mixed, even back then. You know, people weren't entirely fond of it. They had to keep tinkering with it, so it was already a bit mixed. But then, I don't know, they could have done something else. Maybe it was a revolving boss. The terrain is a big ring, and the caretaker keeps kind of just hovering around and around, and then you kind of have to intercept it at a point, and then the fight will start or something. I don't know. Point is, it's I don't know. I think it's just nothing. Well, it is a lot of new things, but I don't know. It's not really worth playing most of the time. It's just
unfortunately no. Unfortunately not. Yes, that is true. That's the thing that sucks to me about Industrial Sabotage on the whole, is that it's outstayed its welcome, frankly. Which sucks because they clearly put a lot of work into it, but it doesn't really have any value anymore. And that's why I hope they realise that when it comes to things like that, I think it really applies mainly to mission types, pretty much more than anything else, that the mission types sort of need to be the simplest gameplay component. That's why on-site refining is much more popular than Escort Duty or Industrial Sabotage.
Yeah.
Because it's the most... It's not necessarily as simple as everything that came before it, It's the simplest out of the
Well,
more recently added ones.
it also it doesn't.
And it's more flexible.
It's not that
the
far
mechanics that it adds. The mechanics that it added aren't frustrating either.
And it uses like what's already kind of there. Literally, you just like you call the thing in, you connect the pipes, you protect the pipes. That's like it, and you're not getting attacked by anything other than just the normal grunts or the normal enemies.
Yeah.
Like,
and I really hope that they learned from Industrial Sabotage that it kind of sucks that this is the case, but for mission types, too much scale and too much content makes them less replayable.
Dilutes them.
Too much, them being too specific. Industrial Sabotage is a very fixed experience, and I know I said that about Elimination, kind of. They're sort of set apart. I don't really know what sets them apart. I can't put into words now, but I know that they're different. There's something about Industrial Sabotage where it's too specific and too laid out. It feels like the same cave pretty much every time you play. That's a big problem. It is the same thing. It's like the same level. It's like you're playing the same level, just with a different backdrop. That's not what the missions feel like normally.
Except for, I would argue, also escort duty. I think that's quite similar.
Speaking of escort duty, I'd argue escort duty is actually more poorly conceived than it is actually more difficult, because it's made more difficult by certain things, but on a very baseline level, I don't think it's actually more difficult than any other mission type. It's just more tedious. The things that makes it more difficult is the things that result from what makes it tedious, which is Doretta. It's much more difficult to sort of go off and do red sugar, which help you make the mission easier, because you have to look after this thing. If you didn't have to worry about certain things, it would be no difficult. If you just focus on Doretta, sometimes things go a little bit. More often than not, I lose like Doretta's segments because I'm away from it. If you could be away from Doretta and not to worry, it wouldn't actually be. That's a big thing that makes it very tedious and very artificially tense.
I think it bears note that probably the two worst, and I would say this very opinionated. This probably isn't the case, but this is how I see it. The two things that I think are the worst things in the game, both are like inanimate objects that you have to protect. Alright, inanimate, but like Doretta, which I don't hate Doretta itself, but I hate the mission, and that kind of comes with Doretta. And the data deposit, like cells, the hacking things, are both, they're like the only examples of you actually having to protect something that has a health bar. That, I'm pretty sure, right? Because like, the oil refinery missions kind of imply that you're supposed to kind of protect the pipelines, but you don't actually. You don't have to protect them from attack of the pipelines. You just kind of fix them when they get broken, which is just occurs because of the mission, right? Like, the fact that you're like constantly.
What was that?
I don't know, Harriet. The fact that you're like.
You made a floating glass bottle.
No. The fact that you're like constantly babysitting these things, and where it's a game where you're designed to be overwhelmed. It is by design you versus many, and it only really works where you can take the back steps enough to kind of get away and kill them while and like grate them down. But because of Doretta and the data deposit will get damaged instead if you back away, it punishes you for playing the game how you normally would, and it reinforces you to. In that you're not supposed to stand your ground most of the time. Like you just kind of got to survive. It's not you're not heroes.
But this principle, you might not realise, it applies to salvage operation in quite a big way, and the salvage operation is fairly unpopular.
Because it does come under the same things, but I'm willing to admit the only reason why I don't carry the same hatred is probably because it's just been there since the songs are played, really. So there's a bit of bias there, but I think it's also, once again, we're not protecting that box, right? We just have to fight for our survival within that area, which is still unpleasant, but it is, something.
Okay, no. These things are more similar than even I realised. If the meter on the uplink module or the fuel cell depletes, you fail the mission. It's essentially a health bar.
Yeah.
Its health goes down when you're not in the zone. It's quite similar.
It is.
I think, and it suffers from a lot of the same issues. But that data deposit in particular, which
I'm willing to get into now.
We're at the point where we should move on to this. We should move on to events, random encounters, random non-guaranteed encounters. And the worst of the bunch.
Which I guess we'll start with because we're teasing it. Have been this whole time. Data deposits / hacksy pods are the worst designed event in the game, and I would argue the worst designed thing in the game. Just in its entirety, just fails to be anything more than a death trap and a waste of time and just terrible. Just like any bad thing you could call the data deposit that, because it's so awkward in every regard that the game provides. I mean, the only real redeeming part of it is that the bald connection, while annoying and can be bad if like exploders kind of drop them and you have to realign them mid-mission, are somewhat fun to use compared to the other connection mechanics.
That part is the best part of it.
Yeah.
Especially when it's in an awkward place in terms of forming the connection. It promotes creative use of the environment and traversal tools. It's actually pretty nice mechanic in general.
But it does bear note that if a detonator appears, or maybe even just a normal exploders, and explodes and the connection gets severed, that's pretty bad. Because
I've had a detonator dig up from underneath.
Oh god, yeah, and it
didn't actually. Somehow it didn't actually drop the hacking pod all the way down the hole. It just landed on a ledge.
Lucky.
It's very lucky.
And that is only an issue because of something that I think is an oversight that was just missed. Because I can't think of a justifiable reason, because they've actively avoided doing this before. But it's that when you need to repair either the cord or the actual haxi itself, the waves do not stop. That is bad. That's like, because like, for comparison, oil refinery, when you need to repair the pipes, enemies stop spawning. You have to kind of clear what's there, but they will stop spawning until everything's repaired.
Mm-hmm.
So you have time to do that and, kind of interact and do stuff. For data deposit, that's not the case. So you could have your connection interrupted by like an exploder, detonator, or have it destroyed at the beginning, and it will literally spawn non-stop wave until you die or the end of the thing. Like, that's it. From then on, non-stop. That's just real life now.
Yeah, and it's not even like I said yesterday, something that's wrong with the data deposit is so that once you start it, you either finish it or you die. And the opposite of that, which is how it should be, obviously applies to machine events. It applies to the other events in the same category as the data deposit.
Yeah.
The prospector, you simply just don't have to touch it. You don't want to, even after engaging.
Yeah, you can just let it go if you realise you're not going to win.
The router, the vital signal event, it will detonate if you fail. It will self-destruct. I haven't actually been killed by that, or at least you can escape.
James, that was funny.
Yeah, but you can escape it, and it's also a fairly easy event anyway. But a data deposit, if you start it, you either finish it or you lose. There's no in between. Or you leave the mission if you can. But that's not the same.
And if you're, and if you're unlucky and it gets placed in like a really terrible place and you're like a scout, you're just not doing it. You like
Yeah.
you're just not. It's just not happening. Like it is like
Yeah.
It's just it is a guaranteed mission failure.
Yeah, weirdly enough, it's actually like somewhat similar to Betsy, I guess. That if you engage Betsy, you're kind of going to have to kill it.
Yeah.
I mean, because core lock, it can apply to a core lock, depending on where it is.
But this is stationary.
But they're actually quite similar to the boss spectres,
Yeah.
as in they'll sort of calm down if you distance yourself, but sometimes you might have to get through them.
Like once again,
Also,
the game is
worth
not like,
doing, kind of. I don't know if they're more or less worth doing though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, it often does do like these things, like just kind of unrelenting. They don't care what you like, but it really is that the data deposit does like everything as bad as it can be. It uses like random spawning to put it in as inconvenient as a place as it feels like. Unrelenting enemy spawns of whatever variety the mission has in store for you. Like it just keeps pulling like grunts, anything, and then it will throw the occasional patrol bot like shredders at you as well.
And do you want to know why it's worse than Doretta? Is because Doretta can't be interrupted.
Yeah,
At least Doretta keeps going.
maybe at some point it gets quite slow, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's also more often than not. Actually, no, not more often than not. Always, you're going to have more space to work with, or with Doretta. I'm talking mainly about the Hearthstone fight, because it's a forced, quite open area. It's like a fixed terrain type, essentially. The hanging pod can end up anywhere, and even if it's in the most open place it can be, chances are it's not as open as the Hearthstone room.
Yeah.
So you just have less space to work with, in general.
And it also confuses me because I don't get why they do that, but they have the data deposit actual thing. It has like a big open ring around it. It flattens the area around it, and I don't get why.
That pisses me. Okay, I just realised that pisses me off. The deposit has space around it carved out.
Like
that's not where you need to be though.
Like
not...
fucking like Tritolite has it, but it's not even as big as an area. I don't think. Tritolite barely has the laser, and I think machine events might also have it. Like it's...
Oh yeah, machine events do. Yeah.
So it's like it's that, but they clear out a gigantic area completely unnecessary, and then spawn it outside of that area in like a different cave far away, and it's like okay, fine, but that's like one of many of the reasons why it just sucks to do, and not to mention after a little while, it really isn't worth doing, like as well, like which is not really an argument. Because that's the same thing for most things, but like,
no, it is. It's any given seasonal event is, in my opinion, as long as you have a blank matrix core and overclocks to unlock, they're objectively less valuable than machine events, in my opinion. Unless you've just started playing and there's like a couple of days left of the season.
Oh, it's not going to change much if you get one data cell. You're not going to suddenly go from like 1 to 100. You're clearly not going to catch up.
No, but it's going to help you get through a little bit. No, you're not going to catch up.
Yeah, but or because of how the data deposits is, if you just started playing, what it's going to do is going to end your mission. Like if you just started playing, I imagine it's an ungodly source of pain. If you even know how to set it up.
Honestly, I think the game could benefit from more tutorial missions.
Probably. I think maybe like a couple missions.
The first mission
through like there's like
there'll be like 2 more. There's only be 2 more. It's like a 3-stage thing. And it's like the advanced tutorial or something.
Well, and
it will take you through an example of events and bosses.
Yeah, well, it can bring you like through every event basically and guide your hand through it. Like in each room there's a different event. It doesn't give you any rewards or anything, but you could just do that.
maybe some kind of like um. No. Anyway,
Thing is, I don't
so
think it's
what was
worth
I?
the
I
time
was
doing
going
it.
to say something about just I think RNG in general and things that people take issue with, such as bulk detonators spawning, doing something like that, or like especially during like an uplink stage or a nemesis spawning during that point.
Yeah, well, that's what happened to us
I'd like to
yesterday
point
as
out the
well,
fact that
isn't it?
people seem to take issue with these things, and there's a couple of reasons why they shouldn't. Um, the main reason is you sort of need to not place too much value on every mission because you just can't. Because sometimes these things will happen. So you need to be able to take them as sort of not necessarily. Well, they are definitely obstacles to your success of the mission, but you need to view them
Just got to take the
differently.
L.
Like we found that funny, right? And that's because
Yeah.
unless it's like the only thing in the game that is really feels like high stakes is it only happens once you've spent a lot of time in a mission or you're on the second or third stage of a deep dive. Those are the only times when you should be sort of valuing success truly.
Yeah. And even
You
then,
should always
it's
be
not
trying
the end of the world.
because of the game's RNG and it can bullshit things can happen. You kind of need to accept that because RNG is so baked into the nature of the game. You can't really bring it up as a point of imbalance because
Yeah.
it's so baked into so many components of the game that you just need to accept the bullshit that comes along with it and sort of convert that into funny moments, which they are to us, and that's how it should work. But that doesn't apply, unfortunately, to certain things because the RNG can fuck you over in a way that it kind of can't be funny. Like on a curse site infection, the machine event, when the terrain
Yeah.
just you just have the terrain. It's like a massive ledge on one, like all the way along one side of the grinder, which means if you get Macteras, if you just happen to get Macteras and poor terrain, you're gonna have a much harder time
Yeah, but honestly, even then,
than
like
you would
obviously
otherwise.
it's not fun, but it is what it is. But the biggest issue I've ever had is that like I've noticed Cursite just doesn't spawn enough enemies sometimes. Sometimes it literally they
Yeah.
do not spawn enough enemies. And it's like okay, I guess I just won't succeed. And most of the time it's also then very boring because they're just not spawning any enemies. So you're kind of just sitting around like
Hmm.
why isn't it working? And it's like, yeah, I think that's honestly kind of worse than getting jumped by a bulk on like refilling the fuel on, alright, on like an escort, not an escort, like a, I can't think of the word, salvage
Like
up. That's what.
what? Hold on, I couldn't hear you for the last 10 seconds.
Yeah, that's because my internet turned off on the Xbox, and I straight up was not online. So I'm surprised I'm even in the party, but I tried to roll with it. But
Wow. So what does that mean for the recording? Nothing, right?
well, it means yeah, nothing really, other than that now we're spending our time talking about it. But point is,
Apologies for the technical
yeah,
difficulties.
I mean they've been hearing it the whole time. In all fairness, like you've been slightly lagging for the entire
We need to
hour.
talk about the. We need what?
You literally were doing it just now, and it's not you, it's me.
What?
It's because the house is
What?
just so hot, and that just really fucks with the internet. Uh, which makes it barely passable. Um,
Oh. What do you? What do you mean?
you're literally lagging as you say that.
But that doesn't. That's not okay.
No, it's not. It's completely unbearable and I can't stand it. But there is nothing I can do about it.
But what about for the recording?
Here's what I hear. Which is why, and this is really, really off topic, but we might need to go back to the old way we used to record them of each individually. Because otherwise, it just this will be what it is for the rest of the summer because it's just too hot. Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, it's not the first time it's happened. I think, last podcast, I think it had some in it, but it was fine.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
Not that we watch our own videos. You done?
Yes. Yes, I
Right.
am.
Is there any more? I mean, I guess we didn't actually compare him to the other machine events.
Of course, there's more. Right, well, we're going back into it. The Omen.
The Omen.
No, we just have to because it's okay. What I was gonna say was that it still, for some reason, feels like we haven't gotten better at them. That's not true. We have.
Yeah.
Except when there's drones. I
Well,
don't know what is about the drones.
I know what it
It's
is.
like they're like fleas with TNT on their backs.
Well, that is exactly
Because you just don't notice them for some reason.
Well, it
But
really.
they're so slow.
The thing is that like, I think the game kind of knows how broken they are, considering you never get them. You know what I mean? I don't know how often but like, it's 1 in 5 to 10 is a drone burster. That's like,
Yeah.
it's like barely common.
Yeah.
But I think that might also be kind of the problem with them, is that more often than not we got the twins and then the burster. So really we get on a little platform and then we kind of get rid of the bottom one easily, and then really only the burster's the only issue. So what we're is at that point it's the only thing we're really working around. We used to struggle a lot more until we started actually raising ourselves above the beams.
Yeah, which surely that was intended.
Yeah.
Because those things are dodge manually. Like, surely that you were intended to actually use actual strategy. Like, and I that they were, but the Omens still represent this sort of this weird, not pillar, but sort of next, because you're promoted doesn't mean you're necessarily in the right ballpark to be able to do these with any kind of ease. We still fail them sometimes.
Omens,
Rather
yeah.
I do, more importantly.
I think failure wise, not that I've done many. Ebonite, I may go down. This is often the case. I do go down, but generally more often than not, probably like a 99% win rate on Ebonites.
I think we've only really failed Ebonites when they haven't spawned enough, which hasn't happened really.
Not really with
recently.
Ebonites. Ebonites are pretty reliable, but
Yes.
the other ones, the yellow ones mentioned earlier, sometimes we fail just because it doesn't spawn enough.
But this sort of enters into, now I do think that's objectively a problem. Things should always be at least doable. It shouldn't be literally impossible because not enough enemies spawned. But machine events and a lot of other things sort of exceptional. So do they have to be as balanced as everything else?
Well,
I guess the actual answer is probably no. Otherwise, we
obviously,
take a much bigger issue.
yeah. Obviously, they don't have a responsibility to be balanced or fun or fair. But like, why make a game and then not do those things?
Oh no! They have responsibility to be fun. Everything does in a good game.
But I think if you ever feel like something's being unfair, you can't. That is like I would say the biggest fun killer next to like having your grandparents be killed in front of you or something like that.
Okay,
like
grandparents.
Yeah, I think parents are probably below that or above. I don't know. Point is, makes Batman, so there must be some positive to it. Never seen anyone's grandparents get killed, and then it calls a superhero. Have you?
Not yet.
Ben needs an uncle, so
Uncle Ben. They're basically his grandparents.
They were his
so
granduncles.
So old. In the original Spider-Man movies, Aunt May is like 95.
Yeah.
She's a fossil. I believe there's a hero in all of us.
And the new one's even older.
No, what?
Yeah. Point is, feeling like you were never supposed to win is not pleasant. It's not a fun feeling to have.
The game was rigged from the start.
And I think if they're even like accidentally giving off that impression, that there does need to be some level of
yes.
And
I
would like to say omens should maybe then be tinkered, but I feel like omens are the only final destination of difficulty. I don't know if you feel that way, but like you were doing, and I'd say you, because I wouldn't. I was going down tons. But you're doing has 5 double warnings with relative ease. You know, hiccups here and there, but as long as nothing goes wrong, it's nothing you can't handle. Meanwhile, a burster drone omen game ends you pretty much. What, most of the time? Like, have you done them on your own?
Drone replicator sweep. Yeah, I've done them.
Can you do them easily?
No.
Yeah. Can you do has 5's 2 warnings with relative ease?
Tell you what it is. If there is happens to be a certain ghostly fellow, I won't be happy about it. He just makes things worse.
I imagine he makes omens quite mad.
I hate Haunted Caves because it makes everything worse, but it's not actually like a handicap. Unlike shield disruption, where it's just like that's a constant thing you have to deal with.
Yeah, and it kind of just like
I don't like the fact that he's always there. He never goes away, but he's not actually a part of you.
Yeah,
I don't know. Something about
constantly
it strikes me wrong. Low Oxygen's pretty similar, actually.
Yeah,
I don't like either of those.
They just
suck.
Like, change
those two,
the way you play negatively.
Yeah, but
like you want to actually like mine or like do something. No, you're either suffocating or being hunted down by an invincible god. Like
yeah. I mean, well, you mentioned double warnings, and double warnings sort of are really the pinnacle of the idea of things not having to be balanced. And but the difference is, double warnings are designed to. Well, the game is designed to not encourage you to play them. Basically, you are definitely encouraged to do those optional events because they come up in your missions
and they reward you.
But you have to. They're there. You don't get to choose if they're going to do a double warning mission or not, which is why double warnings don't have a responsibility to be balanced. I still don't like Haunted Caves or Low Oxygen, but I can't say I think they should be, not there, not part of the selection, specifically when it comes to double warnings. I'm not like, oh, those two should never be paired together. It's like, no, double warnings have no responsibility to be balanced because, and they would do, though, if there was any way that the game sort of, I don't know if forced is the right word, but if there was any official incentive to do them, there would be a bit more cool for them to be curated a little bit more. They're sort of just thrown in and whatever happens, happens.
Well, they're just thrown in for the people that, like, which I think is fairly normal, the people that just, like, play games to get better at them, and then they need harder things to get better at.
I realised recently that things that you wouldn't necessarily think would make sense, like having Terror Plague and Rival Presence be on the same mission, which has causes, like, just a lot more enemies than there would be otherwise. You would think maybe, or maybe those two wouldn't go together, but no. The concept of double warnings is that anything can be paired together just randomly, and the outcome you just have to deal with if you're choosing to do double warnings. It's just like,
Yeah, because you could always
which
just
is
not
why,
do them. Even
to
if you
me,
like the
they
warning.
also embody what you said about the Omen in a way, just as a more constant.
Yeah.
They embody that idea more to me because there's always going to be one there, for you to do.
Mocking.
And you can guarantee, yeah, basically. And they sort of they are meant to be the pinnacle of difficulty because you should never be forced to do the hardest thing that a game has to offer, which is why I think that the double warning missions are sort of designed to be that, or designed around being that, around that concept, unlike deep dives, maybe. Like elite deep dives, which we've found sometimes could do with being perhaps even more difficult, but at the same time probably shouldn't be. It would be quite unreasonable because of what they're meant for. I think probably the grind of getting all overclocks anymore, like it's already an issue for some people where they just find the elite deep dive too hard, and that sort of stops them from maximising their overclock yield, you know.
Yeah.
Which I think is unfair in a certain way. But it's just how it is. And elite deep dive should never be harder, even if I find them easy sometimes.
I don't know. I think Deep Rock as a game really isn't designed to be hard. Like, they really don't particularly want people to play at harder levels, really.
Yeah, but it's also not designed to be a walk in the park. It's designed to just have... It's designed to just have variety. Whether that come in the form of extremes of difficulty and ease, it doesn't matter. As long as there's
any
variety.
type of, like, player, really, or mood.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
All that matters is that there's a lot of different stuff. It doesn't really matter if some of it's more difficult than the rest.
So, point is, everything we said here is useless. It doesn't matter. Ghost Ship knows what they're doing.
Well, no, because we want to point
data
out things that are too hard, like the data deposits.
Yeah.
But the problem is, they're only too difficult because they're not designed really the way that they should be.
With it, that's my issue with it, because omens aren't inherently flawed, right? I think Ghost Ship knew damn well that the omens were hard. they knew that what they were doing was a difficult thing to do, and they did it anyway. And I think that's fair. But I don't think data deposits were supposed to be anywhere close to as difficult as they are. I think they're because they're just a mission. They're just like, there's like, oh, just hack, just do that. But they're an impossibility sometimes. Like, it's just like chaining revives and then no health and revive no health, revive no health. It's just anarchy.
But anyway, I think I'm right though that the game is designed around with the idea of variety. Right. It's designed with the idea of variety in mind more than balance, which is why you can get like a critical weakness on the final stage of an elite deep dive.
Yeah.
It's just variety. Not everything has to be perfectly balanced. And I don't think any individual thing is actually harder than the rest, except for, well, there are things like that. But I'm also mean, like, hold on. Now I'm going to go back on that. No, some things are just harder than the rest. Like magma core as a biome is just more painful than most of the others.
Like
same with Hollow Bow kind of is.
Or just
Fungus Bogs.
I can't think of, is there actually just like a bog standard biome with like no real natural or like, I guess, spawn specific wise enemy threat?
Well, you know what? It's, in my opinion, it is the salt pits because
all they really have is the younglings, right?
What the younglings really? So
just easy.
They're nothing. They are a pain in the ass. I hate them.
They did do us pretty damn dirty yesterday. Throwed us around
Yeah.
pretty hard in the salvage op.
Yeah.
They did do us as hard as the Nemesis, though. You got to give them that.
But it's just like, it doesn't matter that the radioactive exclusion zone happens to be, I don't know, a lot more hazardous than the glacial strata. It's just for the sake of variety and the things being cool and fun, which is why what we've come to focus in on are the things that aren't always all that fun.
Yeah, because at the end of the day...
And unfortunately, it has been a lot of the more recent editions, which is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
Actually, sorry, I'm going to go back on that slightly, because the most recent editions, Season 2, I like pretty much across the board the actual content
that is true.
that's been added.
I mean, well, mixed
Rival
opinions.
Presence is probably my favourite warning.
He adds the most.
The Nemesis is cool.
He's
cool guy.
I will give him that. Yeah.
You know,
I think
even yesterday we had a team wipe from a Nemesis because that didn't make me hate the Nemesis.
Yeah, I think
Still a
you
cool
got to
guy.
bear note that you know how you mentioned I mentioned that like kind of the issue with the robots is shooting them kind of doesn't really give you any feedback, right? The Nemesis does. Not
Yeah,
always.
I think it was designed around that.
But yeah,
to be honest.
they added a thing where if it takes damage or you break it or enough, it's like it like kind of spazzes out for a second.
Well, yeah, because you destroy the weak points,
Yeah,
and like you break the armor on it's like underside and upper side, like reveal weak points underneath, and you see the armor breaking off, and it's just cool.
Really,
it's just cool.
my only issue, and this is once again with when I clarify, my only issue is I'm completely fine with this thing, but if I had to pick something, which I tend to because I like being negative, I feel like you should be able to shoot off its arms. That's about it. I feel like you should have been able to shoot off its arms, but otherwise it is perfectly well designed, probably better than the other robots. But yeah, Season 2, and as established in the podcast when Season 2 came out, I wasn't a huge fan of the like recon hacking drone. I don't know what it's called. Hacking mini event, but not hacking.
Rival Signal event.
That's the one. Signals.
You know what it is. Tyler hated it when it first came out.
It was an impossibility as far as I was concerned. And then I just started being able to do it, and then they made it even easier. Which now, I would argue, they went too far. It is now so easy, it's kind of boring.
They've gone too far.
They
definitely... you know what?
Yeah.
There should be like some kind of physical punishment for not like not hacking one. They should explode.
Well, I was thinking
Right there and there.
The only main issue is that it just doesn't spawn anything anymore, which is like kind of cool.
Like,
I know
the
if you're a
problem is
solo,
it
it's
didn't
fine, but
suit
like
one. Yeah, but it didn't suit having lots of enemies spawn, really.
yeah, but then without any enemy spawning, and they added more time, it's too lenient. You can literally, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can just hack them all with no
Probably
resistance.
didn't need more time, to be honest.
No, I mean it was you know I was fucking up most of the time, and I still managed to eventually start doing them. But like I don't know. And then they kind of made it harder as well. They did it so like you couldn't just kind of sit there and get the timing down. They changed the timing up, which made it slightly harder, but really not that much.
Yeah.
And yeah, they gave you more time, and the enemy spawns seem to be down at least. Which kind of leaves. It also means your other teammates that aren't hacking don't have much to do. You know, it leaves most of the team just kind of standing around, dick in hand.
Yeah, I mean, but still, I do think overall, it probably, I liked it because to me, it's just the most exciting out of the events that they've added, across Season 1 and 2. And sort of just contributes to my opinion that I think Season 2 was kind of a step up.
Which is weird, considering gameplay-wise it stepped up, which I do agree with you on, but content-wise, volume-wise, it's a step down.
Well, technically, yeah.
Not technically being
Which
what
is
I'm
why-
saying, yeah.
I mean, I've talked about it before, but I don't know if it's. I don't think it's not really how I want them to go forward. But I think season 2 definitely benefited from essentially just being a sequel to season 1, because it meant they could directly address the issues more so than
Yeah,
it
but
didn't really
I don't
introduce.
think.
I feel like when you have new concepts being introduced, you have new issues being introduced. Season 2 didn't really introduce any new problems. In my
I think
opinion.
you got to admit that, like you said it yourself, Industrial Sabotage has outstayed its welcome. Its issues would have been addressed by them removing it, or at least delegating it even more. Right? If they
But
just
that's the
moved
sad. That's the
on,
problem. I said it was sad.
yeah, it is.
That it's
But
outstayed its welcome.
sometimes
It's a lot of content.
with the
They
amount of
clearly put a lot of
content,
work into it.
with the amount of content that they're going to be pumping out with these new seasons, they are going to hit and miss pretty bad. I imagine
Yeah.
3 of the grenades they're going to add are probably going to be god awful, and 2 of them are probably going to be broken.
Oh yeah, absolutely,
Like,
absolutely.
you know.
I want to see the broken ones. I want to know what the broken one's going to be.
Yeah, and I kind of hope it's on Driller, to be honest, because that would be interesting. 2 broken ones facing off, like Axis versus new broken grenade. Point is, yeah, they're gonna hit and miss. They're gonna balance as much as they can after the update. Like obviously, probably if that is the case, within a month or 2, the grenades are gonna be generally balanced, except the ones that are just fundamentally stronger than the rest. Like I don't know, I can't think of any examples. But,
Honestly, I think an underrated component of what we will most likely get with season 3 is a lot of balance changes to the pre-existing grenades,
yeah, probably.
which is something that I'm really interested to see. There's no way HEs are going to stay exactly as they are, right? I mean, I'm not crazy, am I? They've got to do something.
Well, I don't want to take credit for it, and mainly because I won't. But I did
But you will.
blow up a big fuss about how kind of bad the grenade situation is, and I don't inherently think that they spotted it or because of my video, but it does point out that a vast majority of people do believe that, you know, HE is god awful, or like, you know, the axes are just way better than the other things, and I feel like if they themselves can't not notice that as well, they have to pick up on that. And I imagine if, you know, they play regularly, I don't really watch it. I don't think. Well, I don't think. I know I don't watch it, but I don't know if the main guy plays Driller, but I wonder if their Driller player, wherever it is, actually uses HEs, like ever. Because like if someone or like the people that play it regularly there don't use HEs, that says something, you know. And if they do, then I need to kind of see how they do that, because they must know something we don't.
It's like they actually are cookable, it turns out.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
But yeah, they'll balance, fix it, and stuff like that. But there will just be an inherent imbalance in the game.
How do you feel about the idea that on-site refining is probably the easiest mission type?
I
think it might be.
Like, can you get swarms outside?
Yeah, you
of
get swarms.
Like the okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but you get barely any ambushes. I think in the ambush. That's the thing. You don't really get ambushes that much on refinery, and egg hunts you get bigger ambushes. I think.
Yeah.
Just objectively. And egg hunts tend to be a bit more. I think 6 and 4 egg hunts are probably generally the easier stuff.
Well, I think four.
Yeah, shorter mining expeditions and egg hunts probably are on the same level.
Yeah, they're
as
like the easier.
refinery, but refineries just. I think that might be why it's so popular, because refineries they can have pretty intense starts, and a lot of stuff in the caves starting off, like lots of spitballers and stuff around to deal with. But once you're done with that, the opening, it's one of the more free and easier mission types with one of the most fun mechanics.
Yeah, and
which
although you have got to
that
admit
goes beyond balance. It's just a more fun mission type than most of the others.
Yeah, but you got to admit that sometimes some generations can kind of dick you over if you're not the right characters, though. You got to admit, like, if you're a gunner, you're gonna have a rougher time than if you're a driller. That's just a fact.
Oh, sorry, rougher time. Yeah, but I've realised something, that it can get too much especially when you have to spend a ridiculous amount of time perhaps mining through the hardest type of terrain to get to a well that's like 50 meters above the ground, and you don't have platforms or drills. And sort of the enemies can overwhelm you, but it's never actually impossible. I've been able to work around ridiculous shit on refineries without the right equipment. I mean, people Tom's ragged on my pipelines. I work with what I've got. At least I can make them in. The fact that I can make such ridiculous looking pipelines and they work is a testament to my skill.
Or just more the flexibility of pipelines in the game mode, And at the end of the day, you can just mine through the terrain with your pickaxe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drills may be quicker and way more preferable.
You also need to be smart about it, right?
Yeah.
For example, as gunner, something that I find myself doing a lot is I will use the zip lines to sort of go up to roughly where I want to go, where I think I'm up to get the pipeline, and I'll just dig in a little bit and go back down. I'll grab the pipeline to build it, and then I'll jump on the zip line, and then I'll just see if I can. The zip lines can work because you can hold the frame, the blueprint, framework thing, ready to build in your hand while you're traveling on a zip line, which helps you find places to put them.
It was more that I'm thinking of the lot. Gunner is the most shit out of luck. Because Scout, while he may be less capable of building the pipes,
Scout,
he's able to find the things a lot easier.
You're right, but when it comes to actually building, when you're on solo, discarding the point of just finding them, I'd still rather be Gunner than Scout. Not only because I'd just be rather the Gunner than Scout, just in general on solo, but because technically, when it comes to actually building and getting the pipe where you need to go, zip lines are technically more useful than the grappling hook. So,
Harry, new mobility tier list: grappling hook D. The other one higher up, I've forgotten letters.
I mean, okay, to follow this up, I think what we're going to do on Saturday, we'll have to do a tier list on either. Well, actually, there's a bunch of crap. If there's an encounters one, I don't know if there is. I want to do that, but it's either missions, biomes, anomalies.
I think
warnings.
Game modes are due.
If you want to do missions, we can do that.
Yeah,
but I don't. That's going to be a weird one to sort of rank. I think fun factor is probably the right.
I think it's going to come down to the ones we enjoy the most. But I think what comes down to what we enjoy the most about them will come down to quite a few things. It's going to be how fun they actually are, how well they pay out, and, stuff like that.
Egg hunts aren't really made up of lots of fun mechanics necessarily.
Yeah,
but I just enjoy egg hunts.
I mean, egg hunts
the way that they are
probably my favorite mission. And I say it, but only really 4 egg hunts. The only ones that I can actually play on my own is I just do tons of 4 egg hunts, just over and over and over again.
The biggest egg hunts are quite the
undertaking.
Experience. They sort of carry with them a certain feeling of they're quite overwhelming. I'll say that.
It does. It does.
Yeah,
feel
a mining expedition.
slog.
The longest mining expeditions only become overwhelming there, but immediately once you've voted into a big egg hunt, you see this massive cave before you, filled with brood nexuses and spitballs, there's swarms of Macteras just floating around off in the distance, just oh shit. It's just this massive cave that you're just stuck in the entire time.
Yeah, you're kind of just,
and it still manages to take an hour.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I think I find it harder to throw myself into a 400 Morkite mission, but once I'm in them, they really don't feel that long. Cave by cave, they kind of just go by.
We're talking about variation here. It should be noted that Industrial Sabotage has no variation for length or complexity.
Yeah.
And that just speaks to the fact that it's out of all the mission types, it feels the most like just a level that you're replaying. And this sort of goes into a different type of balance, where it's not. Industrial Sabotage represents an imbalance of the experience that you're having.
Yeah,
It doesn't stack up to the others in terms of it doesn't convey the right feelings, really.
yeah, it really does feel like a boss fight in like a kind of weird game. Like I don't know. For example, I'm thinking of Dying Light. I play it. Used to play it, and I used to play it like Tom and James, and we'd kind of have fun together. But once you get to the final mission and the final stage and the final fight, it forces you into solo, which immediately changes the experience and kind of makes the boss fight feel less fun because of it. And obviously that's not exactly the case, you don't have to 1v1 the caretaker, but it's more that what makes other things fun, which for that was multiplayer and kind of exploration stuff, gets completely just reduced for the fact that it's a big grand boss fight. Who needs randomized terrain generation or events when you have the caretaker fight? And it's like, I kind of want both. Or if I had to pick the events, the interesting cave generation, that kind of stuff. Like, sorry, caretaker's cool and all, but if I'm going to have to pick, it's the other stuff.
Yeah. The biggest problem is, we say the problem is a lot, or at least I do.
There's a lot of problems.
It's more so it just being in Deep Rock. I know it sounds weird, but I think you'll understand pretty quickly. I mean, everyone else will understand eventually. Is that I'm just speaking sort of contextually about, Ghost Ship as a company, how they operate their output. In fact, the Industrial Sabotage is such an art design and content, yet it feels almost disposable. It just feels like a final boss. It doesn't feel like something you should be doing over and over again, which sort of makes it suck. So they probably put more work into it than pretty much any other mission type. And I really hope that I think they should be free to do what they want. I'll gladly see, but I'd rather see other stuff. But that's the problem with mission types, is that the ones that exist before they started adding them. I mean, technically, Salvage Op wasn't there from the beginning, but I discount that. That whole bunch that were there from the beginning, they're so foundational, and because they're so simple, they manage to cover so much ground. When Ghost Ship, I get the feeling that when Ghost Ship want to introduce new mission types, they sort of feel forced into it being much more concept focused, which sort of creates a less flexible experience. Types are, which is why refining is such a great addition. Well, I think it's just it just fits into. It's sort of allowed to be manipulated by the RNG of the game and by what biome it's in and all those kind of and terrain generation. Unlike Escort Duty and Industrial Sabotage, which are more curated experiences, they don't feel random enough. They don't feel natural. Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah, and I think it's like obviously. It's Industrial Sabotage and Escort Duty. They do have randomized terrain. They are affected by what biome they're in. But really, when it comes down to it, they're not. No. It's the simple fact of the matter. They are not like that changed by the biome they're in. Sometimes it can be a bit harder if the biome's a bit more like deadly, but that's the bog standard. But meanwhile, as we mentioned, pipeline mission that could be devastating. Like if you're in Sandblasted is actually quite nice. Sandblasted, you don't often get ones higher up in Pipeline one. I forgot the name of it.
Yeah. That's because
they're often nice. Very far away, but all still in like the same room, and it's just very simple to get.
Terrain is very easy to manipulate.
Yeah, but then sometimes with like the dense biozone, they often go up. Dense biozone likes going up and down, so you might end up with like pipes at like the top of the ceiling, and it gets a bit rough. But you don't really get things don't change in Escort Duty and Industrial Sabotage. It's just Industrial Sabotage, big room caretaker in, small little rooms you have to kind of run through a little funnel to. That's it, and that's like any differences in that doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it doesn't change what goes on.
Exactly. Yeah, missions like Mine expedition, point extraction, probably, I reckon. The experience almost entirely comes from what type of cave you're in.
Yeah.
It's so defined by the terrain and the caves themselves. And I'd say this is sort of just turning into us just ragging on Industrial Sabotage.
I'm fine with that. And Escort Dewey.
Yeah, but no. Industrial Sabotage is a failure even more than Escort Duty because it doesn't convey the feeling that the rest, I think, are intending to convey. The rest of them are sort of just intending to be like, you're on the job. This is just a job that they can send you down to do. And that's the thing. Like I've said it a few times now. Industrial Sabotage is so specific, and they know that it's in the game for a reason. It's in the game for a narrative reason. In fact,
Yeah.
But they also know that it's on a different. Not whether that's a good thing or bad thing. They know it's on a different level to the other missions because it's treated differently.
Which I think is something that they kind of need to take away from this. Like, if they do a new biome with the meteorite strike, the biome needs to make sense without the meteorite strike.
Exactly.
It
needs to be something that can stay in the game and feel
completely natural.
Which is why I like Season 2 so much, is because a warning is something, even though Rifle Presence as a warning is by far the most grandiose, it still fits in with the rest somehow.
Yeah.
I welcome it as a warning, as just a path, as just a piece of the machine. Industrial Sabotage feels so separate. Even though Rival Presence as a warning came very obviously from this specific context, it still feels much more a part of the game than Industrial Sabotage.
Yeah.
And yeah, like this sort of leads into what I was saying about this different type of balance, where we're not talking about difficulty balance anymore, we're just talking about content balance. Let's talk about DLC balance. I reckon that Dawn of the Dread, I
think we've said basically everything we want to say. To summarise, data deposit thing, worst event, go to hell.
To summarise, things are looking more up than you might think. I've actually seen too much pessimism, I think, from the community. Season 2, sort of was better than Season 1. That's the point. That's why I think things are looking up, is because they sort of moved away from the things that made Season 1 sort of the content that it added not as great, like Data Deposit and Industrial Sabotage. Replace it with Rival Signal and Rival Presence.
I'm thinking about it, and Season 2 was better in every way. The warning's better than the game mode. The event's better than the other events. I like Prospector, and I clearly don't like Data Deposit, but the new hacking one is at least more interesting, I think, than both of them combined. And I think we both comfortably say that the secondaries are better than the primaries, at least in design.
On the whole, they are more balanced.
Yeah. Well, I don't give a shit about it. They're just better designed. Because we got the Hurricane and we're like mixed. It's like it's whatever. Who cares? Sludge Pump you do admittedly very much like.
Well, the Hurricane's sort of having a second life to me.
Yeah, only because you're forcing it.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that Mine Layer System wasn't good before. I just didn't. But yes, I am holding it hostage.
Point is, the secondaries are kind of better designed, at least more interesting generally than what the primaries were, and they kind of added more fun stuff as well. They added the new gowns, the Phasia Knight, stuff like that. So I think just as a whole, it was just a better update, and as mentioned, it's kind of smaller as well. Which is why they could lean more into the slightly smaller updates that are just better, more than the Season 1's giant update that kind of just fell.
You should probably stop soon, because I might... quite the rant about, which is the performance pass, kind of not needing to exist.
Ooh.
Or it being.
Well, the thing is, though, Harry,
them being forced to produce a lot of new cosmetics every update now puts a different spin on the way things were before. They've sort of dedicated themselves to this. This is a commitment that they've made now. This is the thing that we know is coming every season: is a performance pass and a cosmetic tree. And it, I don't know.
I think
that's my biggest issue with seasons as a concept.
I think
as it stands.
I don't think this is actually like really the case, but it is more like it used to be just like, hey, we came up with a bunch of new helmets or beards. Here, have them, and they were like, oh, these are fun. Probably most of them were good.
A lot of the stuff in season 2 feels kind of forced.
Very forced.
Like honestly, I feel like they were
kind
stretching.
Of bad. Cosmetics wise, it was worse this season, admittedly.
Which is why, honestly, season 3, if they want to try and do the same number of things, just make a shit ton of random skins. Because honestly, the paint jobs are the best part of it for me. I think they did a better job overall with season 2 than season 1 when it comes to the paint jobs. And they're always interesting. If it's not great, I'm always interested to see how they look. But you can sort of see the helmets. Oh, there are so many. You can sort of tell whether they're going to be good or not. Except with that stupid skull. Why? Well,
yeah, I think generally as headgears go, this season they did kind of drop the ball. Scorpion mask, disappointing that you can't change the colour. The full kind of cloth ones, both quite shit.
Yep, the hockey mask is abysmal.
Very bad. Skull one, as mentioned. The
Hex helmet is pretty decent.
I think it could have been better. It's weirdly small. It's weirdly tight to the door's face. They could have done with being more.
And then the biker helmet is weirdly big, but also pretty decent, I think.
I think there were more misses in the headgear compartment than anywhere close
in the
to
head
hits.
department.
And even then, I don't think that the moustaches were all that. In fact, they haven't been for a while. Actually, when was the harump?
In the head.
That's this one, right?
Might be. I don't know.
The harump wasn't bad.
Harump.
Point is, balance-wise, season 2 is better than season 1. There, we brought it back. Balancing.
Did we?
Not at all. But
because when season 2 started, that was sort of a big problem because the turret controller was kind of weird and M6 was new, so people were scared of it.
Yeah. Well, there's always.
But it's sort of come. They have sort of made changes.
They've
actually
tinkered.
Relevant and effective changes in terms of making it more balanced.
Yeah, because sometimes
look at the patches made and be like, yeah, this helped.
Sometimes people ranting about things being unbalanced is warranted, and not just people not knowing what to do at the beginning.
Yeah, it's warranted, but it comes from us.
Yeah, because we are 100% right all of the time. It's a fact. And it's a fact because we said it, and we're 100% right all the time. Therefore, everything we say is fact. And therefore, that's a fact because everything we say is fact because it's 100% all the time.
Your touch. Losing your touch, Doc.
But I think that is it for talking about balance in Deep Rock and some other tangents that we went on. But that's the podcast for you. Are we? What do you mean?
What? Who? What? Where are we? What are we doing here?
Are we saying goodbye to the audience, Harry?
Oh, tomorrow.
Harry, I do have a bit of bad news. That probably won't happen because I'm going to help my nan and that move tomorrow. Actually.
Oh. Again.
Well, yeah. Because last time I put their stuff in storage, and now they're actually moving.
Okay, so maybe not tomorrow.
Well, it probably will be, but I'm not sure when it will be tomorrow.
Either that or on Monday.
Sure.
but it
Yeah.
won't be on. And depending on how it goes, so basically, we're starting a new series along the same lines as the Pain Train thing. So
Oh. Basically, it's streamed to save us time.
what? Yeah, but still, it's also cool, fun ways of playing the game in both instances. But what we're doing, it's called the mystery box. I'm going to use a random number generator to essentially generate random conditions under which we play. That includes across the board handicaps, a bunch of different handicaps and forced sort of ways of playing to spice things up for an hour or two every either Friday or Monday. We'll see.
Yeah.
And just because we do it on Monday the first time doesn't be every Monday. I guess.
Yeah. And then Saturday will probably be a I forgot mission type tier list. So
Yes.
look forward to that. Even though we voiced basically all of our opinions of basically all the game modes in this podcast.
Yeah, but it's fresh.
Can't think of anyone that we didn't really mention.
Mission type that we didn't really talk about.
Yeah.
It
would be one of the older ones.
Well, we didn't really get into Mining Expedition or Red Cannon.
I suppose it was mentioned, but I think that.
Or Point Extraction. They were all mentioned.
Yeah.
But we only really focused it on Refinery, Salvage Op, Escort Duty, Elimination, Industrial Sabotage. All the ones that are either new or undergone the most radical changes.
Yeah.
What do you know? It's almost like the foundation for this game is really, really good.
It really is.
And robust.
And
almost timeless, and almost too good.
Yeah. As much as I don't think they're fumbling it, I think that's the only thing that could really go wrong at this point. Is that they for like the next 3 or 4 seasons just proceed to make the worst content ever, and they just keep making the same mistakes, which I don't see them doing. But that's
but they didn't, because they made probably like the best warning.
Yeah, but I'm not sure.
2.
I'm not sure if that was an accident or not, because no one wanted robots to stick around. Nobody wanted them to be around, but they still did it anyway. So they weren't entirely in contact with the community. I mean, right. I don't think that. I mean, there was robot hate, but it really wasn't that vocal. You did kind of have to find it. But yeah, I don't know. I think once again, season 3 is going to be so important for the future of the game. It's going to make it so much clearer. Which season 2 would have done that, but it basically just was.
Well, yeah. That's the thing. The only thing that makes season 3 more important, extremely important, is that season 2 wasn't, which is weird. Season 2 would have been in the same position. It's just it was just a follow-up update rather than something new.
So if they
make season 3 important,
if
is that it's going to be
is like
all new, all
like
time, all
quality wise of season 2 and quantity wise of season 1 within the time period of both of them, basically, then we're in for a good future of the game.
I mean, I think we're in for a good future as long as they keep working on it.
Yeah, well,
I don't think they've really ever completely misstepped. I don't have any regrets about any content that they've added. I don't think anything they've added has actually made the game worse. XGT. Only because of its
frequentness.
Its frequency.
It's
and I get
normal,
it,
right?
Right. I don't feel the same way as much as you. I don't feel the same level of hatred, but I get it. I'm never happy to see it in assignments, but it feels like it's in every assignment.
It is. I swear to God, it is at the end of like every assignment. I don't get it. And it's always at the end. It's never like halfway through. It's always at the end of like the weekly ones, and like, you know, and I'm not sure if that's on purpose, because it might be, right?
It's not as cool as you think, Ghost Ship.
Yeah, like we could all like, honestly, they could change it. They could do what like my kind of pitch is, where they add a bunch more variety to the end of the mission.
You should
the
make that
Omeran-
video.
I should actually. I kind of didn't, because nobody else really agreed with me that it was a bad mission, but I still might do it anyway. But making the final Omeran fight more diverse in its spawns, and kind of changing up how to get there so it's not as boring as hell. And basically just, I don't know, do that, and I still probably won't like it. I think that's the issue, and this is kind of me, because once I've decided that I don't like something, it's pretty hard to convince me otherwise. But it will just always kind of be a mission that I won't like, because at this point in mind, when I'm playing it, I am very bored, like immediately. I just start falling asleep while playing escort duties, but I don't know, they've gone beyond what they actually are in my mind. They're now worse than what they probably are, and it's just, I don't know. But that's enough for us. We'll get more on that this Saturday, and then
week.
Maybe next Saturday after that.
Next podcast,
I will do.
follow this up.
Right, next podcast will be God knows what. I'm not sure. I don't think you've even got something planned for next week, do you?
No, I don't.
All right, so we'll pull something out of our arse, and we'll see you then when we're pulling stuffing out of our arse. Or tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll probably go have a haircut.
All right. Well, rock and stone.
I'm trying to think of a new way to sign off.
We'll think quick. You have 5 seconds. Goodbye. That's
it.
inventive.